Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing YouTube videos now because TikTok's going away. Y'all liked my TikTok videos and talking about books there, so let's do it here in a long-form content. So, this video is going to be all about my 5-star reads for 2024. There were 14 of them, so let's get started. My first 5-star read of 2024 was Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon by Wole Talabi. This book is a Nigerian fantasy. It's a heist fantasy where the Orisha get together and they get Shigidi to go and steal back a mask of great power from the British Museum in London. Very interesting stuff, right? I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. The Orisha are so cool. I think the Orisha are fascinating as just a mythology, and I really like learning about them. This book is if American Gods was actually good. If something actually happened in American Gods. There is an interesting little romance subplot to it. That's fine. It's cute and all. It's not like, oh my god, it's the best romance. It was fine. I liked it. Could have been there. Could have been completely withheld from the story and couldn't have told you the difference. Didn't really have a decent effect on the plot. But, well, overall, the book is good. I think the book is good, and I'm definitely going to be reading more by this author. Because funny enough, I actually found this book because I had read this author in a short story collection for book club in person, and his story was the only story that I actually really liked. And I was like, wow, I really want to read more about this author because me and short stories don't really get along. And later that day, I saw one of my friends, Carter, talk about it on his page. And he was like, oh yeah, I read this book, it was great, blah blah blah. And I was like, wait, is that the same guy? And I looked up, I was like, oh yeah, it is the same dude. So he liked it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get it and read it. So I got it, read it. Fantastic. Absolutely enjoyed it. It was so much fun. Great time. Now, the next book I'm going to talk about is The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by K.J. Charles. Now, I did not know that I enjoy Regency-era romance. Didn't know that. But it has to be gay, because there's only 3 of them that I like so far. Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, The Nobleman's Guide to Seducing a Scoundrel, and A Lady for a Duke. That's it. Those are the only 3 that I like, because I did try and read one of the Bridgerton books, because my sister's into them. Not for me. Not my cup of tea. But this one, The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, is adorable. Goodness. It's about this low-level nobleman whose dad died, and he gets to inherit the estate, whatever. And he hasn't talked to his dad in 20 years. And his dad's kind of like an asshole. And so he inherits it. He's trying to figure out the dad's books and figure out what's going on, because he had just gotten kicked out of his London job because they found out he was gay. And so he's trying to figure out his dad's books, and then it turns out his dad was being blackmailed by these smugglers, and he becomes friends with one of these smugglers, and then the friends turned into a little more than friends, and they end up saving each other's lives. It was really good. Really enjoyed The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen. Now, the next book I want to talk about is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nane, Kwame, Adeji, Brenyah. My god, that book was amazing. That's my favorite book of the year. Took the top spot. Absolutely loved it. It is a vicious, vicious critique on the American prison system and the American justice system. It is fascinating. It was a critique on the exploitation of black bodies in sports, too. And I love it. It helped me change my views on how I view the American prison system and prison in general and the justice system in general. Because I was able to find a lot more literature to help support what was talked about in this book and read more about it and changed my views. I love that. My favorite thing. Really cool. The story follows these 2 women who are in prison, and they sign up for the All-Star Games, where it's death matches. If you survive it for 3 years, your sentence gets commuted and you get out. So instead of them having to serve 20-year prison sentences, they serve 3. But they have to fight in a death ring cage match and kill people. Kill other chain gangs, and it was really good because these 2 fall in love while they're on there, and they're together, and then they force them into different chain gangs, and they have to fight each other. And I had to reread the end like 3 times to be like, excuse me, did that just happen? Oh my god. So it was highly recommended. I would definitely read it again at some point. I'm definitely going to be reading it again, for sure. The next book I'm going to talk about is Kindred by Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler is one of my all-time favorite authors. I will read everything by her by the time I'm dead, because her books are so good. I've read Fledgling, Parable of the Talents, and Parable of the Sower. And now I've read Kindred. And wow, Kindred was so cool. So it follows our main character, who she gets thrust back from 1970 in an interracial relationship to the slave era of 1820s South, to one of her ancestors. And she keeps getting thrust back to save him. And she saves him from drowning as like a little boy, then she gets thrust back to the present day, and she gets yanked back, and she has to live from a modern woman in the 70s to living as a slave in the Deep South. It was crazy. She saw so many things, and it really didn't hide any of the actual brutality of the slave trade and slavery in the South. And I think they were in, like, I want to say Maryland or Virginia. So it wasn't like Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi where it was particularly bad, but it was still really good. Fascinating book. Her mind, I wish I could have met her. She's so cool. Her writing is so good. I haven't read a book by her that I haven't liked. So I'm going to be reading the Xenogenesis series this year, and I'm so excited to keep reading it. Next, we're going to talk about The Guncle and The Guncle Abroad by Stephen Rowley. Oh my, I loved them. They were great. The books were so cute and cozy and warm, and they were great. So the first one follows a kind of washed up TV star. He was on TV for a long time, and he lives as like a bachelor just in the middle of nowhere, Palm Springs, just by himself. And he has a niece and a nephew. They're 10 and 6, and their mom was his best friend in college, and she ended up marrying his younger brother. So he's their uncle through their dad. But their mom gets cancer and passes away. And his brother comes to him and is like, listen, I have been abusing painkillers this entire time. She's been having cancer to deal with my lawyer job and the kids and the cancer. I need to go to rehab. Can you watch my kids for me? And this gay bachelor in his like 40s is like, okay. And so he's helping these kids overcome the grief of his best friend, and his sister-in-law of losing their mom. And he's helping them get through it over like the 6 months while their dad's in rehab. And it was so good. It was so cute, so cozy, so much fun, and silly. There were times like I was laughing, and I want to be that kind of Guncle. That was so cute. And then the second one, the Guncle Abroad, it's about 4 or 5 years later, and the dad has moved on, and he's going to be marrying this Italian princess. She's actual royalty, and the kids are having to come to terms with the fact that their dad's moved on, and how she doesn't want to replace their mom. She just wants to be there for them and to have a relationship with them. And it is so cute, and he's trying to help them figure that out while they're getting ready for the wedding in Italy. And he gives them all this good advice, and he helps talk her through it. And like the older, she's like 14 now, the niece, he's like talking her through it and helping her be like, your mom's not gone, she's still here in your heart. We love you. She loves you. She wants to be part of your life. You gotta let her in. She's not gonna replace her, and she knows that. It was great. I highly recommend them. Great feel-good books. Next, we're going to talk about The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitasei. This is her second book, and oh my god, it's a space heist. I love those. I love space heists. And it's a space opera where this woman is trying to decide if she should help her friend recover this holy grail, basically, that allows his species to reproduce, and they're on the verge of collapse because they can't reproduce. Or help keep the portals open that require that grail that allow for intergalactic space travel. So she's stuck with helping her friend or helping humanity. And humanity hasn't even been that kind to her because she had this virus when she was a kid, and because of that, her body's like a little scarred, and people are really crappy to her because of it. So she's like, what do I even owe them? What do I owe them for? I don't know. It was really good. It's all about like colonialism, figuring out oneself in the greater scheme of things. And I really enjoyed it. It was just a lot of fun. The characters felt like they were popping off the page. I just love the way she writes. She's one of my favorite authors. I really like her books. Next up, we're going to talk about Chuck Tingle's Bury Your Gaze. Did I love this book? I loved all of Chuck Tingle's horror. I've read all of it now, and it is good. This one is about a TV writer guy who he wrote a bunch of like D-list horror movies for a long time, and then he finally got his big break, became a famous producer slash director. Well, his studio is just like creating all these AI actors and stuff from actors who had passed away, and like all of a sudden, all of his horror monsters from the past keep showing back up, like in real life, and like actually killing people and hurting people. He's like, oh, what the fuck is going on? And people think that it's like some crazy marketing ploy, or because they don't think it's real. Like, these are actual monsters, like Freddy Krueger style monsters, and it was crazy. And it turns out it was like all about the corporate AI stuff and about how corporations do not have queer stories at heart, and they don't care about telling an authentic queer story. It does not care. Corporations only care about money. They don't care about minorities. No matter what they say, they don't care. And that's what this book is all about. And it's honestly like, don't buy into rainbow capitalism is kind of like the main message of the book that I took away from it, at least. Really enjoyed it. Chuck Tingle is a phenomenal horror writer. I will definitely be keeping up with all of his horror books going forward. And another horror book that I read was Lone Women by Victor Lavalle. I love westerns, and I love western horror. I love horror when it's in the western and the American West, especially in like between like 1880 to like 1920. So good. This is about a black woman who leaves her segregated community in California and moves to Wyoming or Montana, I don't remember which one, middle of nowhere. And she has this trunk with her that has her deep, dark secret in it. And turns out the deep, dark secret is her demon twin sister that breaks out and kills people and eats them. And it becomes like a local cryptid. It was cool. Because this book was like, the message of the book is more about letting go of family trauma and like family curses, right? Like letting go of your baggage. And I just really enjoyed it. And Victor Lavalle is really fun. I've read 2 of his books now, and I'm going to be reading The Changeling this year because I like his writing style. It's good. Now, in the fantasy vein, I finally got around to reading The Will of the Many by James Islington. That was fun. That was good. I was glued to that book. I did not want to stop reading it. I really enjoyed it. Because, wow, that was a lot of fun. The book was so good. It follows our main character, who he is the last person to survive from the royal family on this little tiny island that got conquered by the big empire that's conquered the whole continent, that's based off of the Roman Empire. And he has been working really hard to stay under their radar. Well, then he kind of gets caught like underground cage fighting, and he gets picked up by one of the higher up government people and is adopted as his son so that he can go to this super elite school and use all the knowledge he had from being like a prince growing up and join this school and like this super elite military college and figure out what the fuck's going on there, because it's ran by the order of religion, and the order of government and the order of military aren't allowed like on the island to figure out what's going on. And he's trying to figure out what's going on for his freedom, basically. And his adopted father is like, yeah, something fucked up is going on there because my brother died, and it wasn't an accident like this, and it was. I know it's not. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Great book. Keeps you on the edge of your seat. Crazy plot twist at the very end. Really enjoyed it, and so I'm super excited for book 2 to come out later this year in May, I think. So that's gonna be fun. Now, another fantasy book that I read this year. I read The Wheel of Time. All 14 of these books, plus the prequel, all of them. They were so difficult. But, man, if they weren't good. A Memory of Light and Towers of Midnight were some of the absolute best fantasy I have ever read in my entire life. Especially Memory of Light. That 1,300 page, just massive battle. Oh, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. It was so good. The build-up over all 15 books. The time is great. The final book makes the final 2 books make the whole series absolutely worth it. They were phenomenal. They were fantastic. I will read them over again at some point in my life. Don't know when, but I will. So the only nonfiction book on this list is going to be The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Treuer. I really enjoyed this book. This book is an indigenous perspective response to Dee Brown's Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Dee Brown's book was very important for its time, 55 years ago in 1970. That was the first time that anybody had even dared question the American mythos of the peaceful manifest destiny and just Native Americans just going quietly to their little reservations. And no, he laid it out. He was just like, the American government and the American military and American settlers killed all these people for these reasons. They committed war crimes. They committed a genocide. This was like the first time that anybody really ever said that. And his book was controversial to a lot of Native Americans because it was very defeatist. Like, there was one tribe that he talked about that was in California, where by the end of it, there was like 50 people left. And I was like, this was in like 1920. And I was like, oh my god, does this, even by the end of it, I was like, does this tribe even exist anymore? I look them up and they're still here. They're still around. They're still alive. And they're still trying to keep all of their traditions alive. It was really cool. I was just like, oh, cool, they are alive. I kind of wish he told us about that, but okay. David Treuer wrote a response, basically, talking about the resilience and resistance of Native Americans to American imperialism and the manifest destiny. And really talked about how they kept their traditions alive even through getting their culture beat out of them at residential schools. And all other sorts of god-awful things. And what it's like on the reservations today and what they're struggling with now and how they're trying to make it better now and all sorts of things like that. It was really cool. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. I really, really enjoyed reading his perspective and reading his response to what was said in that book. So it was really good. I really liked it. Now, last but not least, one of my absolute favorite books of the year that completely changed my perspective on romance genre in general, Cubs and Campfires by Dylan Drakes. I have never found a romance smutty book that is gay bear focused, chubby boy focused, where both the characters are big beefy dudes. Because that's what I like. I like men who are big and beefy. This was the first time I ever found one that was anywhere like that. I really liked it. It was so good. Does it have its problems? Yes, kind of. But was it what I needed? So the plot follows our main character, who he normally writes a sex advice column in like his college newspaper, and he's trying to get a real job at like a real newspaper in Seattle. And they're like, we don't really want a gay guy writing a romance column in our newspaper. And he's like, well, what if I write about not having romance for the summer? And they're like, okay, let's try it out. And so he takes a job at a fire lookout station in the middle of absolute nowhere, north, like Oregon or Washington or somewhere, like way out there in the Rocky Mountains. When he's out there, he's just by himself, just doing his own thing. One of these days, a big, beefy lumberjack, redhead dude with a big old beard and kind of chubby belly shows up. And he just looks like a hiker, and he's like, hi. What up? And it's very embarrassing. I can't really talk about how he found it. It was really funny. And then the guy's like, yeah, I'm just going to live out here in the woods for a while. So they did. So he was just like camped down at the bottom of the hill while he was up at the top. And they kind of meet up a couple times, hang out, talk. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to resist doing stuff with him. So fuck this article. I'm going to be a tower watchman professionally for the rest of my life with him. And so that's what happens. And then chapter 7. Goddamn, it was great. So I liked it. It was great. I'm going to definitely be reading the rest of his books that are coming out because they were so good. But yeah, that was great. So yeah, those are all my 5-star reads for the year. Let me know what you think of them in the comments, and I'll be talking to you guys next time.